Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Disney Inside Out. I'm your host Ryan, and I'm very excited for our guest today. We have got Blayne Weaver. I'm going to read a little bit about Blayne and then we'll let Blayne say hello. Blayne Weaver is from Bossier City, Louisiana. Began his acting career in high school with the film The Flood, Who Will Save Our Children, an NBC Movie of the Week. His first major TV movie was on The Good Old Boys with Tommy Lee Jones. He has since done guest spots on ER, JAG, Chicago Hope, NCIS, and of course, the reason we've got him here today, he's the voice of Peter Pan in Disney's Peter Pan 2, Return to Neverland. And in 2004, he formed Secret Identity Productions, their first film, Losing Lois Lane, a short about a depressed Superman. That sounds fascinating to me, I have to see that. Was Weaver's directorial debut. Since then, Blayne's written, directed, and starred in several films. He wrote the Netflix hit American Pie Girls Rule, wrote the horror film Getaway, and directed the romantic comedy Cupid for Christmas. And if you want to know more, you can see more at BlayneWeaver.net. So Blayne, how are you? Say hello.
I am great. Thank you so much for having me. This is very exciting.
I think I said that. I think it's American Pie. Is it Girls Rules?
Girls Rules, plural, yeah.
Girls Rule. Okay.
Hey,
I was like, I read it and I was like, I think I said that.
Close
wrong.
enough.
Well, very happy to have you. We're going to talk about Peter Pan, Disney, all that fun stuff. But first, I want to do a little segment I call the Goofy Gazette.
Fair enough.
And I'm going to bring up a little piece, some Disney news, see what your thoughts on it. The big piece of news is that Disneyland is reopening tomorrow.
I'm so excited.
Are you going?
Yeah, well, my fiance has been bugging me to get the reservations for Disneyland here in Los Angeles. And, you have to make reservations and get tickets, and it's like kind of a juggling kind of thing. So I've been checking in, but so far the dates that we want to go haven't been available. So I'm ready though. We're checking every day.
Checking every day, yeah. It's a totally different world now. You have to reserve, and the park reservations have been kind of gone. But I'm excited that's reopening. I'm really happy for all who are returning to work and all who get to sort of go back and experience the magic. Another interesting thing is that Haunted Mansion got a little bit of a revamp. Do you like the Haunted
Oh
Mansion?
yeah, I mean,
ride?
who doesn't? Isn't that that's
Yeah.
it's in my top 3 for sure. What do they do to it?
I was just reading, apparently the loading area, they kind of did some enhancements. I think they kind of just spruced it up a little bit.
I like a little sprucing. I'm not above a little sprucing.
I think that the main reason for the enhancement was to clean up the area and also to allow more space for the loading and unloading. So it could be a kind of, COVID thing, but also to help guests who need extra assistance who are in wheelchairs.
Well,
So
that seems
that's really
reasonable.
cool. Yeah. The other Haunted Mansion thing I was excited about is, so you probably remember years ago the Haunted Mansion live action film with Eddie Murphy.
I remember that it exists, but I can't say that I've had the pleasure.
I think most people would say the same thing, that they remember that it existed. And that's all we'll say about that. But there was rumors that Guillermo del Toro was going to write and, direct a Haunted Mansion. And I think that would be fascinating. Unfortunately, that is not happening, but they have finally named a new director. So there will be a new Haunted Mansion live action coming out.
Great.
And it's Justin Simeon to direct it.
I don't know him off the top of my head, but that doesn't mean anything.
He directed. Oh, he wrote, produced, and directed Dear White People, which became
great.
a series on Netflix.
Yeah. No, I've seen a couple of episodes of that. That's great. Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Doesn't it seem like Del Toro pulls out of more projects than any other, big director? It seems like he gets really excited about something, and then it gets down the road of Del Toroville, and maybe a studio says, "Oh, this is going to be a Del Toro film." No, I don't think this is quite right, and then he peels off and goes and wins an Oscar or something.
Yeah, for years he was like, "Oh, Haunted Mansion's my favorite ride. I'm so excited to do this film. I'm going to write this great script. It's going to be good." And we're all excited, and then he's like, "Actually, never mind."
Yeah, never mind. Yeah,
never mind.
I think he's doing fine though. I'm not worried about him.
No, I'm not worried about him. I'm like, stop ghosting us.
Yeah, stop pretending.
No pun intended.
I'll go see anything that he's a part of. So,
So I want to know some more about you before we jump right into the Disney thing. So, Blayne, if you can tell us sort of, how did you get into the entertainment business, acting? How'd that happen?
Sure. Well, I grew up in Louisiana, but where I grew up, shockingly, had this very alive theater world. There's a children's theater, there's a college theater, there was a professional theater, there are all these things. So I had lots of opportunities to do theater as I was growing up, and where other kids were doing Boy Scouts or T-ball or whatever, I was on the stage. And when I was about 15, I started going to Dallas, which had a small, film community, and auditioning for stuff. Every time they wanted somebody with a Southern accent, they would go to Dallas, and I ended up booking some stuff as a kid. And then I moved to LA after high school with a brief stop in New York City. And I was just a working actor. Went to UCLA out there, and basically I was just out there doing the thing. And I had done a movie with Matt Damon when he was writing Good Will Hunting with Ben Affleck.
Wow.
And I thought that was so cool. And he's like 5 years older than me, so like exactly the kind of guy that I would look up to at 19. So like inspired by him, I started writing a movie with my best friend in Los Angeles, and that somehow ended up getting made. And it was a movie called Manic with Don Cheadle and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And that movie went to Sundance. So all of a sudden, I'm a Sundance screenwriter. And I had always been really intimidated about directing, but there are certain things about that project that made me feel like I could do it. And at the same time, I'm doing the voice of Peter Pan, which was, an acting gig, and it gave me some money from Return to Neverland, so I financed my first directorial effort. So from there, I've been directing and writing and acting and getting to do Peter Pan whenever something came along, and it's like just kind of the Renaissance man version of Hollywood life, I guess.
I love that. I love that. So now with Disney, do you remember how were you first introduced to Disney?
Like Disney as a whole, like I was inundated with Disney content when I was a kid. I had Disney Channel, obviously, back then, and we had the VHS of all the things that we could watch over and over and over again. So, but the first movie I remember seeing in a theater was Mary Poppins. And it wasn't the original run. I'm not that old, but it was. They had put it in theaters again, and I was there with my baby cousins. But I must have been 3, maybe 4. But I remember that one of my baby cousins was just crying the whole time, and I was like, "Can you get her out of here, please? I'm trying to enjoy the film."
Watch.
That I remember that distinctly. That she wouldn't stop crying, and I'm like, "I'm not leaving." So I don't know what you guys are going to do with this screaming child, but I'm staying here until the end.
Oh wow, Mary
Yeah.
Poppins. All right, I love Mary Poppins. What did you think of Mary Poppins Returns?
I really liked it. I kept, but I was kind of detached from it because I kept sitting there and thinking, so are these songs as catchy as the original, but they're not as catchy because I haven't heard them 6 million times in my life?
Right,
Or were the other ones more catchy and sing-alongable? I don't know. And I don't know the answer to that. I'm not a musical guy, but I really
right.
enjoyed what they did visually. And, Lin-Manuel, of course, is great. And, Emma Blunt is great. No, that's not right. Emily Blunt? Emily Blunt.
Emily Blunt.
Great.
Yep, you got it.
All fantastic. It seems like kind of a dream job for all of them. So you
Oh
love it
yeah.
when that kind of thing happens.
Would you say Mary Poppins is your favorite Disney film, or do you have another sort of
No,
Disney film that you like?
conveniently, Peter Pan is my favorite Disney movie and always has been.
Conveniently.
Like I just have always related to Peter. I, feel very man-childish. I kind of stopped at 13 and have never really gotten over that kind of thing. So it's a perfect role for me, and I'm feel very blessed to have it.
Now, when you were growing up, so you were growing up in Louisiana,
Mhm.
correct?
Yes.
Did your family make it to Disney World, Disneyland? Did you go to the parks at all?
Yes, I went once to Disney World when I was 8, and that's the only time I've ever been. So I'm very excited to
Okay.
get to go again, sometime soon.
Yeah.
And I went to Disneyland when I was like 11, but that was it. Like I didn't have a lot of exposure to it, but it was a dream scenario both.
Yes. Do you have a favorite ride?
Well, when I was a kid, it was Peter Pan's flight, just because that
Right.
was my favorite. And like, it really was. I don't just say that. It was like, it was the one that I went and I bought the hat and I bought the knife. I love
Right.
that he sword fought and stuff. But I think on the whole, I would have to say that Pirates is probably my favorite. Pirates of the
Yeah.
Caribbean or Caribbean, both correct.
Both are correct.
I think that's my favorite. Yeah.
Have you seen? I would love to go to Shanghai Disney. Have you seen the Pirates ride in
No,
Shanghai?
no.
If you like spoiling rides for yourself on YouTube, watch a YouTube video of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. It is beyond, like, it's Pirates plus plus plus. Like, the things they have done are just incredible.
Yeah, I'll check that out. That sounds awesome. I
You
mean,
have to watch
well,
it.
one thing, the only time in my life it's ever occurred to me that there's a Disneyland in Shanghai is I did a job as Peter for a stage show, and I'm like, "Where's this for?" And they're, did
Yeah.
Shanghai, and so everyone is not speaking English except for Peter. They decided that Peter should definitely speak English no matter what, and I guess they subtitled him or something. And I'm like, "Cool, good for me."
Yeah, good for you. Another job. That's interesting. I did always wonder that sometimes when I do see videos from the other parks, how some of it is in English, like how they decide who will speak English and who will not.
I think one of the most impressive things about the machinery that they have is they talk about everything. Everything is a decision, and you have Disney character voices, just this slew of professional people who know backwards and forwards these characters, and will sit up and argue about Peter would never do this, and it's like I've been had the role long enough where they listen to me on certain things, and I'm like, I feel like he would say it more like this. Does that work for you? And but they have the machinery that's crazy. By the way, someone has chosen this time to use a leaf blower right outside of my house. I don't know
That's fine.
if
I
okay.
don't even hear
All
it.
right,
So,
good.
all right. So that's good you brought up Disney character voices. I have a question about that. But before we get there, I want to know Blayne meets Peter Pan. How does that happen? How do you become Peter Pan? How did you get that role?
I love this story because so seldom in life is it really like it could go. There's a leaf blower. You don't hear that guy? I'm on the
I don't hear
second
it.
floor. Why is there a leaf blower on outside of my window? Anyways,
Why?
so so few moments in life are really like a toss of the coin, and this is absolutely a random luck event. I was in LA. I was working with an agent. I chose this particular day to kind of drop in, which actors do sometimes to bug their agents, and, do some FaceTime or whatever. So I just dropped in, and I'm like, if she's available, I'd love to say hi. If not, that's fine. And they're like, yeah, she's available. So I go back there. I talk to my agent, and I'm like, I just haven't been, got going out too much recently, and I was, just wanted to remind you that I exist. And she literally looked at her all the papers on her desk and said, go down the hall and audition for this. And basically, in the voiceover department, which I was not represented by, they were doing auditions for, Return to Neverland. But the reason that she thought of me is because in the original Peter Pan, Cubby was voiced by an adult. And he had kind of like a goofy voice, like, hey there, that kind of thing. And they were
Yeah.
looking for voice matches. They wanted everybody to sound exactly like they did in the 50s, right? At first, they changed Cubby. They ended up going with Spencer Breslin, who's a great actor.
Right.
But at that point, they were looking at an adult actor. And I went in and I started doing it, and I just felt really silly. I'm not really like a voice kind of guy. And I'm like, I feel dumb. I'm not comfortable doing this. But I'm like, but have you cast Peter? Because I can do a kid's voice, and I've seen the movie 6 million times. I'm like, I can absolutely do Peter. And he's like, yeah, sure. So he gave me the sides to Peter. I auditioned for it, and for me, Peter Pan is a cross between it's just Wally Cleaver from the old Leave It to Beaver show, where he's got that 50s kind of lilt to gee golly beef, let's go down to the park kind of thing. And so I did that, and then I went about my life, and I didn't think about it. And about 6 weeks later, I got a call from the voiceover department of my agency, and they were like, "Do we represent you?" And I'm like, "Oh no, I'm in theatrical." And he's like, "Well, we couldn't figure out why we had your tape, but Disney likes you and they want to call you back for it, and they've been looking all over for you." So I'm like,
Oh, wow.
okay. So I went in again, and I ended up booking it. And to me, there were so many things about that could have gone the other way. I could have gone in Thursday instead of Tuesday to bug my agent. I could have said, yeah, I'll just do the Cubby thing and never have booked that. It was just all of these the dominoes just falling the correct way, that I feel very, very lucky. And it's been a great job ever since.
Yeah, that's crazy. So your agent was like, "Oh yeah, here, take this."
Yeah,
and
just get off my back, dude.
Right.
Try.
She just got you like one of the greatest jobs.
One of the
Like, and
greatest
then
long-term jobs you could possibly ask for.
That is fantastic. A total like, I feel like stories like that happen in the acting world all the time where you're like, oh, I just kind of went to this audition, had no idea, and I just,
Yeah.
But did you go in thinking like, you know what, I could be Peter Pan actually? You had that in your
I
mind.
don't think. I mean, I knew that I could do it, but I never thought I would book it. And especially at this time, this was 2000, right? Like
Yeah.
late 90s, and at that point, I think I had done a movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and he was doing the voice for Treasure Planet, right? And it was all
Oh,
famous
right.
people,
Yeah.
like they weren't
Yeah.
pulling actors and dropping them into movies. And I was convinced the entire time. It took about 2 years to record the movie, where they would make story changes, and we'd get to come back in, and they did some casting changes, and I would come in, read with a new person. And I was convinced I was going to get fired any day, and they were going to hire Michael J. Fox, and
Oh,
they were just going to put somebody
Michael.
famous in there, and I was never going to make it to the screen. And I was convinced about that. And I told my parents that. I told anybody. I'm like, look, I'm pretty sure that I'm just a placeholder until they decide to put somebody famous in there. And until I saw the trailer in the movie theater was the first time where I'm
Right.
like, well, that's me.
I guess I'm
I'm
doing it.
Peter Pan.
I'm Peter Pan. That is so great. Now tell me, like, so the first you did like a table read. Do you rehearse together? I know it's not animation; usually records separately, right? But did you actually get to kind of sit around with the other actors in the beginning and sort of read through?
Yeah, that was what was something that was really cool about this experience is that we did a table read of the whole movie. All of us having cans, all of us in front of the microphone. So they recorded it, but we kind of did it straight through, and we did it. Then we started breaking it up. So we did one full thing, and then we slowly broke it up. So we did that for about a week, and it was me and Corey Burton. Corey Burton's like voiceover extraordinaire, I'm sure you know, but
Yeah.
he was doing Hook, he was doing Smee, he was doing pretty much everybody in the movie. And then you're gonna kill me. I can't think of the actress's name. Uh,
Catherine Beaumont.
Catherine Beaumont was actually reading Wendy, and that was
Oh
so
wow.
cool. She's the original voice of Wendy, and she's the voice of Alice in Wonderland, and I was just
Yeah.
like blown away. I'm like, that is so cool. And we get to spend like a week doing this really cool table read, and then they broke it up, and it was just me by myself for the rest of the time until they went with a different casting decision of the actress playing Jane, and
Oh.
the actress that ended up playing Jane, Harriet, uh, Harriet was in London, so we would
Yeah.
record over the ocean. But they wanted us acting
Oh.
together because they wanted us to, be able to play off of each other. And she's wonderful, and it was a really, really cool experience for me.
Now, Catherine Beaumont, so she was at the read-through, but they didn't use her in the film,
They
though,
didn't.
right?
I'm not really sure whether it was a contractual thing or what, but she didn't
Okay.
end up being the voice of Wendy in the end. But I'm always thankful that she was there for that first thing, so I get to meet her,
Yeah.
and because I just, you know, as many times as I've done, stage shows or rides or fireworks displays, I'm always talking about Wendy. And the
Right.
fact that I got to sit there and exchange lines with the actual Wendy was really cool to me.
So for those who don't know, we're talking about the sequel to Peter Pan 2 Return to Neverland, which essentially takes place around World War II. Wendy has children. Jane is one of them. She's a little reluctant to believe in Neverland, Peter Pan, all that, and then she gets kidnapped by Captain Hook, taken to Neverland and sees Peter, and you know, everyone can sort of guess what happens. Jane gets to fly, everything like that. Did the story change at all while you were working on it? Was there any major story changes?
Yeah, things changed like regularly. I was really shocked at how, again, it's this machinery that Disney has where they will just try something out for 3 months and do like an entire, animation around it and then scrap it. But like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I think actually it was World War I that it was around the bombing of London. But like, there were lots of things they played with the Jane character,
Yeah.
making her stronger, giving her more voice and power in the story. And I think that was the biggest change is that they made her as equal a hero as Peter. And I think it was a really good decision. And I think it's a very empowering movie for little girls.
So you got to
Oh
sing
no,
in the
I
film,
got
right?
to. Yeah, I got to sing. Lucky me.
Did you go into did when they cast you, were they like, hey, you're gonna be Peter, there's gonna be songs, or was this one of the things where they're like, hey, could you sing? Like, did they ask you after the
Yeah, this
fact?
is a really, again, it's kind of a lucky thing because my agent called me and said, "Hey, Disney wants to know if you sing," and I said, "No, I really don't sing." And he said, "Let me ask you again. Do you sing?" And I'm like, "No, I don't sing." She's like, "Well, let me put it this way: wouldn't you rather get paid to go in and for them to decide that you can't sing, other than you just saying no, I can't sing?" And I'm like, "I don't know, I suppose," but I was not comfortable with it at all. And but the funny thing about it is, I went in and they just decided very much like they did about when Peter speaks English that that Peter probably couldn't sing very well. So instead of
Right.
bringing in a ringer to sing like a whole new world Aladdin style or whatever, they just they let Peter be a little off key, which is lucky for me. It was one of the most traumatizing moments in my entire career, though, because we were at Capitol Records in Los Angeles, this iconic building, and I was like, this is so cool and intimidating. And I went in and they had all of the Lost Boys there. The actual actors were there in the room singing together. And they're like, Blayne, why don't you go in there and sing with the Lost Boys? And, they all thought I was cool, because I was Peter and stuff. And I went in there and I was singing and they're like, hold on, Blayne, move closer to the mic. We can't hear you. I'm like, okay,
You're like,
excuse me,
no,
guys,
good.
excuse me. And I moved to the
Yeah.
front and they stopped us about 10 seconds in and said, actually, move back a little bit. So I
Right.
started again, and then they're like, "Actually, why don't you step out? We'll get you separately," which is a good thing because if you ever
Oh.
hear the song that I sing in Return to Neverland, it's not really top 40 material. Uh,
But it's not, but I think you're right. It's very Peter.
yeah,
Like, it's like when I think of Peter Pan singing, I don't think he's like a, this lyric baritone. I think he's exactly that. He's a, a boy who can sing,
yeah.
carry a tune.
And this song is very much like following the leader, like in the
Right.
original Peter Pan. So I think it works
Yeah.
great in the movie, but I have a little PTSD about that recording.
Was it with a full like orchestra
No,
or just
no,
like
thank God. Oh, that would be so much worse. You're right. No, it was pre-recorded music that we just had to hit.
okay. Because the music, I was like, oh, I was like, I want to ask. I know they rarely do that anymore. I feel like like Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, they did that, and then I don't know if I feel like they stopped doing it. But like full orchestras in the room is like, you know. But I guess if you're not a singer, you're like, oh, I
If
don't want
every time I messed up, I had to stop 25
that.
people who were playing instruments, I
Right,
I don't know that I could have ever shown my face
right,
again.
right, right. Now, do you find being Peter all this time, are there things you have to do for your voice to sort of keep it? Is there a placement for Peter that you're like, he lives here, I have to kind of warm up to get here? Or is it just sort of like you can just step right in?
That's a really good question. I think that normally I can just drop into it, but it depends on how long the day is going to be because also Peter yells a lot, and like talking like Peter is not no big deal, but like the crows I have to put at the end of the day, here we go, that kind of
Yep.
stuff, I can't do a lot of those at the beginning of the day and keep up, the high register. But it's really not very far from me. It's just a couple of notches higher, and it's mostly like I said, the 1950s kind of dialect, I guess. But
Right.
yeah, I love doing the voice so much, mostly because he does yell so much, and there's a lot of swashbuckling and yelling at Captain Hook and stuff. So like
Right.
normally a regular script or a regular uh, event or even the movie, I can do it all day long. But when you get into like a video game where you're yelling the same things with slight variations for hours and hours, it can get a little rough. But throat coat, that's what it's made for. And it
Throat coat
works
tea,
works
the
very
best.
well. I am not a paid endorsee, but I will say throat coat is a great
Right.
thing.
We are now sponsored by Throat Coat Tea, everyone.
Not a bad idea. I would look
Not a
into it.
bad idea. Not a bad idea for a podcast. We're all using our voices. Yeah, I was curious. I know it's like, some people just fall right into it, but I mean, it does seem very natural. Like your voice, you kind of like you said, you kind of are Peter Pan, so your voice is just sort of there for you.
Yeah.
Now, when you're recording in the movie, and maybe in general, were there any lines like from the movie or something you've done like that were just Do you have a memory of like, oh, this one line was just so hard to get, where you just had to do it over
Oh
and
my
over?
goodness, there certainly were lines that I just couldn't seem to say right, and to the extent that they changed them. And I don't think I'm
Oh,
alone in that. I think most voiceover people will find some kind of phrase that they trip over. I don't remember specifically what it was. Like the corny stuff is the hardest thing for me. It's like the faith, trust, and pixie dust is always like, all right, let's do it,
all right,
that kind of thing.
right.
But nothing specific, but I have been guilty of that. One of the things that I think is really funny is that, I people ask me advice and all this stuff about voiceover all the time. And I'm like, I'm not a voiceover guy. Like I don't have clean diction. I'm not, my voiceover agents are constantly trying to send me out for these things that is like, uh, use as directed, so and so, very quick lawyer
Right.
speak and stuff. I'm messy. I'm
Yeah.
all over the place, and I, have a buried Louisiana accent that comes out in weird ways where I'll overpronounce my G's, and yeah, it's weird stuff. Somehow it seems to fit with Peter because I think Peter's messy too.
Now, when you're recording, so if you're recording, let's see, a Peter Pan film, a show for a park, or a video game, of those three, what's the hardest recording session to do?
Absolutely a video game. Absolutely, and I find it fascinating. That like especially the more we move into the future, the more options players have, and the more different responses that Peter will have. Whether you're playing as Peter or he's reacting to you or he's giving you advice. Like the future is crazy. I did this game a while ago where Peter could see what kind of clothing the player was wearing. So he would comment on like I did hours of, "Hey, nice green shirt, nice red shirt,
Oh,
hey, nice
oh
purple
my
shirt,"
God.
and each one gets recorded 3 times, and each one, you just go on and on and on. It's very, very monotonous, but I'm told that it all really comes out great. I'm not much of a gamer. I trust that
Right.
it's out there doing awesome things.
Yeah, I'm not a gamer too, but I've seen, heard some, so I'm sure it is. Yeah, I didn't think about with the games. There's so many options, so depending on like what color shirt, you have to have a line where you're like, "Hey, nice blue shirt,
Yeah,
nice all of them."
it's amazing. And,
That's
there are so many things that the player can do wrong. So you have to tell them, no, higher, lower, and all
oh
of it is individually, picked apart by Disney character voices because they're so meticulous and professional. It's like nothing is just phoned in. Nothing.
So, what is the process with Disney character voices? So, if who call do they call you and say, "Hey, there's a video game we need you to do," and then you go in and meet with them, and they kind of go over the lines with you, and you kind of talk about like, "I think Peter would do this. I think Peter would say that," or is it kind of
It's a little less collaborative than that. I think it's like they basically reach out and say, we have this, game, or we have this fireworks display, or we have this thing where we'd like to have Blayne. And I say yes because I jump at every opportunity to get to do this part. So I go in and they have a script, and what's funny is it's kind of like editors. I talk about this because I'm a director as well, and one of the jokes about independent film or any kind of film really is you go to the wrap party and all the actors are there and everybody's there and nobody knows who the editor is, but the editor's like, "Oh, you were so great,
right,
you're really funny," and they're like, "Oh,
right?
thanks, really appreciate that." But
Who's that
yeah,
guy?
exactly. That's
Yeah.
kind of how the geniuses at Disney character voices are. They know me, but I haven't seen them in 2 years, and it was
Right.
one day 2 years ago, and they're like, "Oh, Blayne, the show turned out great." I'm like, "Show what?
What show?
Whatever, great,
Yeah.
thank you." But they do a lot of thinking about it, and I'm sure they talk amongst themselves about what my shortcomings are, where you need to push, Blayne to get this, and but it's always been a great experience for me. I say that it's less collaboration, but they really do let you act.
Mhm.
And I only time I get line readings from them is when I ask. I'm like, just tell me how you want me to say it, and I'll hit that. Which is in voiceover, I would imagine that happens all the time, where there's just like, just say it just like this. But
Right.
it's only when I ask for it. They're complete consummate professionals, and this is what they do. This is what they do all the
Right.
time, and it's really cool.
Yeah, I'm fascinated. When I learned about them, I was like, I picture all these people in suits being like, well, let's see, Ariel wouldn't say
Yeah,
this, Ariel does this. And like, they're just like, so they have to know these characters inside and
that's
out.
it. That's absolutely it. And I have had them say, that doesn't. You sounded a little Blayne to me, and not Peter. And I'll be like, okay, all right, cool. That kind of
Wow.
thing. It's like they're constantly keeping it between the crosshairs.
Was there ever a time when you kind of what taken by surprise, like you heard yourself in a place you weren't expecting? And you're like, that's me, I'm
Yeah,
Peter. Or it came up and you're like, that's me.
it's the greatest feeling ever. Like it really is. Like it's better than accidentally seeing yourself on TV or being on a plane and being like, "Hey, there's my movie." It's way better
Right.
than that because it's so random, right? But I went on a Disney cruise for my birthday a few years ago,
Oh,
and it was my actual birthday. And I went to dinner at this restaurant that had all of these black and white drawings of Disney characters on the walls. And at dessert, they kind of come alive and start, colorized and start talking.
right.
And I started talking, and it was me. And I'm like, I had no idea that anything was going to happen on the walls. I had no memory of recording this thing, but it was absolutely me. And my friends that I were with, like, tried to tell the waitress, and she was like, okay, cool.
Okay, yeah, sure. Do you guys want the check?
Yeah, exactly. But I'm like, that is me, and I'm Peter Pan, and it is Peter Panning right now. But normally I kind of go in expectantly. I go to Disneyland. And I guess I should have expected something on a Disney cruise, but it totally took me by surprise, and it was my birthday, so it was a good day.
That's the best birthday gift
I
ever.
know.
Now, what are some of the things? So if we go to Disneyland or Disney World, do you know off the top of your head, like, hey, my Peter is in this or Peter is in that? Do you know of
I don't. It
anything?
changes all the time. It's like I was
Okay,
in the Disneyland, Disney World fireworks show last year, pre-COVID. I have no
right.
idea if that's being held over now or like what the world is. But I'll tell you that's something that's fun. Is every time my friends would take their kids to Disneyland, I would get a
Oh,
video recording of me telling them to look at Tink, in the air and stuff, and that's really neat.
now do you ever are you ever out and like children recognize your voice?
No,
Does that
no.
ever happen?
One thing that's really funny about it is that kids don't like it at all. You'd think that kids would get a
Yeah,
kick out of it. Kids do not get a kick out of it. Parents get a kick out of it. But
right,
I can't tell you how many times a parent has tried to express to their child that I'm Peter Pan and how confused and like just wary they get. I'm like,
right.
you don't ruin Peter Pan for them. Just tell them when they're older, then they'll like it. I work with a university now, like teaching film and whatnot, and they love it. Once you're 19, 20, and you watched it when
Right.
you were a kid, like you dig it big time. But like a 9-year-old, no, and or younger,
No.
no, they just don't buy it.
Yeah. They're like, he doesn't look like
He
Peter
doesn't look like
Pan.
Peter Pan.
He doesn't look like Peter Pan. Oh, that's fun. Well, all right. So I have a couple questions for you then that are just a little more fun centered around Peter Pan.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a would you rather. Would you rather fly or never grow old?
Ah, yikes, yikes. I think I'd have to choose flying. It's a tough one, but flying sounds pretty good, and never growing old has a downside to it. But flying doesn't really. I
Yeah.
would fly. You're way better at
Yeah.
swashbuckling when you can fly.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'd pick flying too. Never grow old. I agree. There could be a sad component
Yeah,
where everybody else leaves and you're always
yeah.
around.
Wendy's all grown up. We're all grown up.
Yeah.
She just left. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah, that is sad. Would you rather be a pirate or a lost boy?
Mm, wow. That's really tough. Being a pirate, it sounds really fun. At least the Peter Pan version of being a pirate.
Right.
And none of them take baths, and none of them brush their teeth or anything like that.
Right.
Which,
But do the Lost Boys do that?
no, that's
Because
what
I
I'm
thought
saying.
about that as
Yeah, I
well.
think they're both dirty. If one of them were cleaner, I would go with the cleaner one because I don't like the idea of everybody, just being filthy. I guess I got to stay with my tribe. I guess I'm going to go Lost Boy because the pirates get pushed around a lot, and the Lost Boys really do whatever they want.
Yeah, I feel like the Lost Boys are a little also a little maybe smarter too, or a little more, agile than the pirates
Yeah.
necessarily. And I thought about the hygiene too. I was like, we never see a bathroom for either.
No.
I mean, I'm assuming the ship has one. Lost Boys, I'm like, I really don't see one in that, the treehouse thing.
Yeah, but the Lost Boys at least have their teeth, and the pirates really don't. On the
That's true.
whole, like they don't have all of their teeth in there. I like to keep my teeth.
Yeah, teeth are
Yeah.
good. Final question. If Peter Pan had a best friend in the Disney universe, if he was friends with another
Mhm.
character, who do you think Peter Pan's best friend would be?
Wow. That is a very good question. What? Let me think. Peter Pan, best friend. Um, uh, I don't know. Do you have a one? What do you think?
I was thinking about it too, and I kind of stumped myself too. I was like, who would Peter Pan love to hang out with?
I think he would like those monsters from Monsters Inc.
Monsters
I
Inc.
think that him
Yeah,
and Sully would have fun together. Causing
yeah.
problems. Raising.
I also thought about like Stitch because Stitch causes a lot of like
Yeah,
mischief.
yeah. I like that. I like that. Peter really doesn't want to be overshadowed by anybody. Like he's kind of
That's
ego
true
driven a
too.
little bit. So I wouldn't go with any heroes because I don't
Right.
think that he would like that very much. But
Yeah.
somebody who caused trouble and like to go on adventures. Well, he'd probably get along pretty well with Ariel.
Yeah, and I feel like she would give room to be like, okay, you can be the hero, Peter. Like,
Yeah,
you
totally.
know,
He would not like Prince Eric, but
no,
he's got a pretty good history with mermaids, I think, and
that's
you know,
true. Yeah, the whole, the mermaids, they love Peter. They go crazy for him.
mermaids like Peter. I don't know.
Mermaids like Peter. Yeah, it's true. It's kind of like could be, a trick question because Peter Pan, although loves to be social, I feel like he doesn't want anybody too close.
Right,
I feel like he's like, it's getting too real.
man.
Because even with Wendy,
Do
he
I
kind of pushes
relate
her
to
around.
that?
Yeah. I want to give you a chance, Blayne. Let us know where we can find you, what you've got coming up. Tell us about everything.
Well, I'm out there on the Instagram and the Twitters and under Blayne Weaver, which Blaine with a Y, which is a little confusing to some people. I've got a new
Oh,
horror film that just came out called Getaway. As you mentioned, I've got Cupid for Christmas coming out this Christmas, but you can also find Santa Girl out there, and American Pie Girls Rules is on Netflix. And I have a new movie called The In Between, starring Disney's Jennifer Stone from Wizards of Waverly Place.
oh,
Yeah, she's great. She's also in Santa Girl, so I've gotten to collaborate with her a couple of times. But The In Between drops May 18th on digital
okay.
everywhere, so check it out.
Briefly tell us about the Getaway horror film because I did look at it. Just tell everyone so they know just a brief plot about it
Yeah,
because it does sound fun.
it's not rated, but it's probably an R. So just FYI. But it's
Yeah,
about
no Disney kids
no
at this
Disney kids for
movie.
this
Yeah.
one. But it's about some college students who go off into the woods for the weekend to make their own horror short film. And as they're making a movie, they start disappearing, and there's a killer moving among them, making his own movie. But it just came out a couple months ago, and you can go on Amazon or any of the places and just look up my name, and Blayne Weaver will take you right to all of my work. And so please feel free to check it out.
Yeah, I'll put everything in the notes so everybody can find you and follow you because you've got some great stuff out there. Thank you for this, Blayne. I loved hearing about Peter Pan and talking about it, and you shared so many great stories. Greatly appreciate it. And everybody, thank you for listening to us. You can follow Disney Inside Out on Instagram at Disney Inside Out Podcast, on Twitter at Disney Inside O, or you can email us with your thoughts at DisneyInsideOutPodcast at gmail.com. And don't forget to rate us, leave a review. It helps spread the magic to new people. So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you real soon.